to edition 97, part 3 of All Killa No Filla podcast with me, Rachel Fairburn and Kiri Pritchard-McLean. Just before we start, we'll do our usual disclaimer. This isn't hero worship. We do this podcast because we have a mutual interest in serial killers. And as we are doing this podcast, it stops us from writing to them in prison.
Merry Christmas.
It's Christmas Eve.
As we record this, yes. Who knows when this will go out, but yes.
It is 10 on Christmas Eve. I'll be honest with you, I smoked about 20 fags last night. And you can hear it in my voice. I've had a Christmas ciggy.
Oh, why not? 'Tis the season.
Crimbo ciggy. Yeah, it's a sound.
Do you know how to smoke the other day? My fella.
Did he?
Yeah, quite unexpected that, isn't it? It's because I was with a load of people who were talking about how much they absolutely love a cig after a drink. And I was like, oh, you love those, don't you? And he's like, yeah, I miss them. And I was like, well, I'm not stopping you. And then we went to this gig and had a bit of a bop and everyone was drunk. And then I kissed him and I was like, have you been smoking? He's like, yeah, you said it was absolutely fine to. And I was like, I'm not sure that's exactly what I said. I wasn't expecting you to do it.
I can't imagine him smoking. That's so weird.
Do it all the time.
People, I just can't imagine him smoking. That's so odd. There's some people that I just...
Yeah. To be fair, he only really did it when he was drunk. He wouldn't smoke unless he'd had a drink.
New Year's resolutions. It's got to go. It will kill me. It was Harry Hill that when I did Alan Davies As Yet Untitled said to me, he said, you know what, your body can recover from most things. He said, people can get better from being alcoholics, people will recover from illnesses. And he said to me and Helen Bauer, we were having a cigarette, he went, that will kill you. And I was like, and it's stuck with me. And every time I'm on and off with smoking. I can go for weeks, months without bothering. But then occasionally I'm like, do you know what? I'm going to get 20 cigs. But it always pops into my head. Harry, of all people, can you imagine Harry Hill, the person who has made me really reconsider smoking?
That's so funny, isn't it?
Because obviously he used to be a doctor, didn't he?
Yes, very clever man. It's going to sound like a clang now, but I texted him the other day because I was at something and someone would make a piece of art about him, so I sent him it as a picture. And I said, oh, look where you are. He said, that looks like Philip Larkin. I was like, yeah, now you mention it does, yeah.
Oh, that's funny. So, basically, just a long-winded way of saying, I sound terrible today. Awful. Love Christmas Eve, though. Favourite day.
Really? All the anticipation?
Better than the big day itself.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. Better than the big day. Also, do you know what? You know what I'm like. And people do think that I'm miserable, and I'm not really. So this morning I woke up and I wish people would indulge my frivolity sometimes. Because it doesn't happen that often. Tim, I woke him up and I said, it's Christmas Eve. Father Christmas is getting ready as I speak. Rudolph is having his nose shone. You know what he was met with? A wall of silence.
Unbelievable.
You know, I'm trying. I actually meant it. In my head, Rudolph now, he's getting his nose shone, being cleaned. All the reindeer, all those other reindeer, the bitch ones. They're
bitch ones? Fucking hell!
Well, they're horrible to him, aren't they? You know what? It's a toxic atmosphere in Santa's workshop.
It's a tribunal waiting to happen. Hey, did you see that tribunal that got won the other day by a guy who didn't want to go to his Christmas do? And
no.
They said, well, it's you've got to. And he went, no, I don't have to. I do my job.
Absolutely.
Because they were like, you've got to bond and you've got to have fun. And he was like, no, I'm not paid to have fun. And he went to court and he won a tribunal saying he doesn't have to have fun at work.
Well, first of all, of course he doesn't. He's there to do a job. Secondly, I assume that do would be in his own time.
Yeah.
So if you want me to go on your Christmas do, you pay me.
Yeah.
Pay me for that time. It is work, but there's no obligation. You don't have to hang out with these people. He's there to do a job. Good for him.
Yeah.
Do you know what? That man is a hero. Christmas do's, though, I never enjoyed them. Sometimes I just didn't go. Look, I'm very much of the opinion when I had jobs, like, library and that, I didn't want to hang out with these people. You're there to do a job. And I have so much respect for people that are like, I work here from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. That is my obligation over. And that is, you don't have to do overtime. You don't have to show willing. Do the job you're paid for. And that's all you need to do.
Yeah, I agree, but it is nice when you work somewhere where it's fun as well and you've got mates. So when I was growing up, I worked in this cafe and we used to have epic Christmas do's and staff parties, and I used to really look forward to it, especially being a teenager around here, and I worked with a load of other teenagers. Incredible scenes.
I like those little spin-off do's that you do where it's like, yeah, I'll come for a drink for the big Christmas do, but then me and like Brill Phil will just be like, we've got to go, and then we'll just go to the pub on our own.
Spin-offs. Do you go to the PBJ Christmas drinks?
We were doing a gig.
Oh shit, yeah. Because I quite like our agency has Christmas drinks, and that's fun because it's
I've never been.
Nice people.
I've never been because I signed with them during lockdown.
Oh yeah.
2020, and obviously that year there was no Christmas do. Then the year after, didn't COVID make a comeback? And it was weird again.
Omicron.
So that
it got kicked
so that
out
didn't. That didn't happen. And then this year was gigging.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, to be honest with you, I love a drink. And I never drink on my own, and I never drink in the house. And I only ever drink as a social thing. But I'll admit this now, I'm a fucking lunatic. I don't know when to stop. I do not know when to stop. I don't know when to stop drinking. I cannot have one. I will have... these people are like, I'm just going to go to the pop for a pint. I cannot do that. It's either 50 or none.
That's so funny.
So I don't know when to... Like last night, lovely evening, went for tea with... I had a lovely steak pie. Oh, thank you. Went for tea at the pub. Tim's mum and dad and his brother having a lovely time. Then we ended up going to another pub. His parents went home. I think I drank about... Also, I mix my drinks as well. I'm not one of these stick to one drink. I think I had... Basically, I think I drank a bottle of wine. I drank half a bottle of Prosecco. I drank 4 pints. And
How do you manage this? Because there's nothing of you.
Look, I honestly, I don't know. I can drink a lot. And I'm not saying that's like, what a legend. It's the bane of my life. Like, I wish that... To be honest with you, I'm actually going to try and do dry January.
Okay. Have you done it before?
No. Since I started drinking when I was 16, like going out, I have never had a period of time... I've drank longer than I've not drank.
Really?
I've never had a period of time where I've not drank. And it's just like... I'm not like, I've got a problem, because I clearly haven't, because I can go for like weeks. Or like, if I don't go to the pub, I don't drink. But I'm going to have to try it because I just want to see if I can do it. And the mad thing is, my family are teetotal. Apart from my dad, he doesn't even drink anymore. He used to go to the pub, my dad, but they're all teetotal. My sister doesn't drink.
Yeah, that is strange.
And it is me, bloody, God knows what they must think of me. I'll go back home, careering in at 2 a.m, talking broken biscuits. Embarrassing. Awful.
Do you know what? There'll be people listening to this now. 3 sheets to the wind.
Oh, yeah.
At 9 a.m, and they'll be like, this is my intervention.
No, you enjoy yourself. You have your Christmas booze. But no, I'm gonna try and do it. And if listeners support me on this, if I can do it, I'll donate 50 quid to a charity. Of someone's choice. So there we go. I've challenged myself now.
How do we hold you to task on it?
Oh, I'll pop it on social media. I'll be one of those balls. I'll pop it on there.
Right.
Wouldn't it be awful if it totally... I mean, because a lot of my friends don't drink anymore. So, comedians that I'm friends with who, I've had legendary nights out with, don't drink anymore.
Yeah.
And their lives are better for it.
Imagine that.
Yeah. Anyway, Charles Manson. So I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to try and do dry January, which will be a challenge because I'm actually going away for a few days at the beginning. I'm going to Dorset, so that'll be nice. I'm going to challenge myself, and if I put my mind to something, I always do it. When I get through it, 50 quid of my own money. Tell me which charity. Well, let's pick one. We'll do a little thing and I'll donate it.
Great. Really great.
I'm full of Christmas cheer now, aren't I?
You are.
Look at me.
You'll fucking save loads more than 50 quid as well.
Oh, that's a good point. Do you know what I could do? I could just tot up.
No, you don't have to. It's January with stand-up comedians. No one's paying us. You don't have to. I wasn't saying you need to give more money. I'm saying...
Listen, let me ride the crest of this goodwill. I am, waking up this morning going, oh, Rudolph's getting ready, and I've been ghosted. My goodwill has been ghosted. So, anyway, Charles Manson.
Manson.
Where are we up to with him?
Well, we were going to meet the family, weren't we? Not like Family Fortunes.
That'd be a good episode, wouldn't it? We've got Charles Manson.
Versus the Flintstones.
So, he's started a cult, hasn't he? With his sort of philosophy based on the Beatles, bit of sprinkle of Scientology and science fiction. And a little bit of Dale Carnegie. Love that little curveball. Now, he's already got a few little followers, little sycophants.
They start in San Francisco. They meet because it's just like a gang of hippies and sort of dropouts and waifs and strays, blow-ins, all that kind of stuff. And that's in Haight-Ashbury. Well, that's what they call them in Ireland, isn't it? I listened to that. Yeah, a West Cork podcast about
the blow-ins. I like that.
Yeah, because it's like you get that around here as well. Whereas basically English people with rumbling mental health problems move here to finish their book. So it's that sort of like artistic people who end up living in the middle of nowhere.
Yes,
and
the blow-ins.
Generally, being a fucking nuisance. So there's a bunch of hippies there. But the family fuck everyone off so much and piss everyone off that they have to they move to LA because they imagine being so annoying. Hippies and homeless people are like, go fuck yourself.
You're testing our patience.
Yeah, and that's a jibe at hippies, not homeless people. I've got do you know what? You know how endlessly tolerant I am? The only people I'm not tolerant of is hippies.
Do you know, I can see myself going that way. I'm obsessed with Stonehenge and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I think I'd say 6 months away from just wearing, like, tie-dye or elephant pattern trousers and just jingling as I walk along.
Can I just say...
Yes.
Don't forget, like, one of my dear friends is Chris, who's a druid.
Yes.
And is all about... nature, healing, everything having a sort of like a divine sense of the same universe and all that kind of stuff. Very respectful of that, very interested in all that. However, the two things I have deep intolerance for are white woman wellness, which is sort of like appropriating the bits of yoga they like and then, being taught by poor brown people in India and then coming over here and charging a fucking fortune for it. And being like, namaste, but then doing fucking coke as well. Like, one or the other. And then also, like, just sheer fucking lazy fucking rich kid hippies really piss me off. Those people who are like, I want to go off grid. And I'm like, go fuck yourself. Knowing that they've got stuff to fall back on at any point. They really piss me off.
I'm neither of those things, though. I have a connection with stuff like that. And also, I think, like yoga and spirituality and that kind of thing, I think, the areas of life where I think we should all be interacting, food, music, spirituality, they're the 3 areas that I think we need to be more open to mixing with people from different backgrounds, different beliefs, different cultures. I think that if we engage with those 3 things... I think things would be a lot better. That's my 2 penneth on this. My peace out, man. That's my food, music, spirituality, I believe that we need to stop putting up barriers and saying, appropriation, blah, blah, blah. I think these are the areas that we should be engaging with each other. And that's my 2 pence.
Oh, I'm not. I've never said I'm not against anyone engaging with it. I'm pissed off when they appropriate, when they come over and go, I'm having this bit of the culture, but none of the sort of none of the cultural relevance and reverence of it, and then I'm going to package it up and sell it to white people and benefit solely from something that's nothing to do with me. I think that stuff pisses me off. And also, I'm fine with, I love the idea of swapping, like music and food, but I don't want to eat a fucking hippie's food. I can tell you that from growing up with a mate whose mum was a Reiki master. I can tell you don't want to eat a hippie's food.
No, listen, there's certain people's houses I wouldn't eat in. There's certain if you're covered in cat hairs, I'm not eating your fucking cakes, mate. I cannot, please have a wash and then I'll think about it. I'm not even going to get into it. There's certain... Do you know, I might mention this before, I've got a dislike of food in the shape of things. So, you see, like gingerbread houses or...
Turkey dinosaurs?
Yeah, but that's different. Like, what I mean is food that, like a cake or when people put kids' food in a smiley face, I'm like, or like, when children make cakes and they go, oh, do you want a cake? It's like, no, you pick your nose, you put your little finger up your arsehole. I don't want your cakes, you dirty little shit. Like, you're unhygienic, you're grubby. I've never seen you clean. I do not want your cakes. I hate anything that...
Whose house are you going round to where they've got their finger up their arsehole?
You know what kids like? You see them, don't you, in the street, and they're all fucking, picking their noses or, picking up slugs or, scratching their asses because you've got no fucking social, what's the word? They don't know how to behave because obviously the children. And people are like, just let them be. It's like, no... It's scratching its ass. Smack it. I don't mean violently, just tap its hand. And then, I don't know, I just hate anything that is... So, you see these, is it a cake or is it a shoe? You know, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that just spins me out anyway.
Do you know what the problem is? To me, that cake has had too many hands making it.
Okay, yeah. When there's fingerprints on it, like a Wallace and Gromit.
There's too many people involved. It just seems unhygienic, and I cannot bear it. Turkey dinosaurs are different because they're delicious, and also they
haven't been near a human hand.
No, of course they've not. Potato waffle, yeah, fine. That's in the shape of a waffle. It's anything that kids have made or anything that. It seems that too many people have been involved in it. I can't even remember how I got onto this subject.
I know what you mean now. Yeah, and I'm on your side.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't really like elaborate cakes anyway. And you can quote me on that. Just get a normal cake. It doesn't need to be fancy or... Just eat a cake. Do you know what I mean? Anyway. Mary Brunner. Bet she liked a cake. What an awful link. So he's got some followers at this point now. Mary Brunner was his very first one. She was from Wisconsin. She'd moved to California to study and was later working as a library assistant. Oh, relatable. She met Charles Manson. He was 33 at the time and he'd just been released from prison. And he persuaded her to let him live with her. How does this little creep do this? And they became lovers. Ugh. Imagine Charles Manson being your lover. She was the very first family member, and she left her job, and they just ended up drifting around California in a camper van. But also, her being there, they had a system where it's like they're a couple, and it enabled him to meet other young women as well. Bit Fred and Rose West, this, isn't it? She became pregnant by Charles Manson in 1967. They had a son called Valentine Michael, who they nicknamed Pooh Bear. They lived in a condemned house in Topanga Canyon. When Mary gave birth, because at this point they'd acquired several other young women who became part of the family, the women helped her give birth and they attended it. She had several aliases, which are, quite frankly, bizarre. Mariosh Ock, Mother Mary, Mary's Manson. They're fucking weird, these people.
Mm-hmm.
Brunner and Manson, they meet an 18-year-old girl, Lynette Fromm. Her nickname was Squeaky, which we'll get to in a bit. It's, yeah. So, they live in Venice in California. Oh, sorry, they meet her in Venice, California. They'd all been living together in San Francisco. Now, over a couple of years, the family became big. There's about 20 to 30 people living in communally. It's a bet they fucking stank. Some of them were sort of hardcore Manson followers, and some of them were just young people who drifted in and out. The blow-ins, if you will. So the family travelled along the coast. They visited Washington State, Oregon, Nevada. They eventually settled at Span Ranch, which is near Chatsworth, Los Angeles. This was from 1968 to 1969.
This ranch, by the way, is already pretty established. It was used for backdrops in loads of westerns in the 50s and 60s. So it was known as the Span Movie Ranch, but it was acres and acres and acres. And the guy who owned it was an 80-year-old blind guy, right?
Yes. Now, this actually sounds quite nice initially. So Manson got his female followers to cook and clean for George Span, and they acted as all-seeing eyes for him. Now, that sounds nice. However, George Span, he gave the girls nicknames, and this is Lynette how she became known as Squeaky, because she made a squeaking noise when George Span ran his hand up her thigh. The girls were said to have had sex with George Span on Manson's orders.
But you know why?
Why?
Because he didn't charge them to live there. So basically they had an agreement that if he had these sort of girls that he could have sex with and that would lead him around the place, then 20 people could live at that ranch for free.
He actually outlived the Manson family. Because, spoiler alert, after the murders he actually stayed on the farm with some of the women from the family.
Good Lord.
I know, he died 5 years after people had been convicted, but yes, some of the girls stayed and lived with him. Now, Manson claimed that his commune was all about peace and love and, peace and love, peace and love. Little Ringo Starr impression for you there. You didn't expect that, did you? But basically what he's doing is manipulative. He's forcing the women to have sex with George Span, and him as well, and he's sending them out to do criminal activities, theft, fraud. He also had illegal firearms, which, that's the least of our worries at the moment. And a motorcycle gang were regular visitors. So basically, he's controlling these people, and they're involved in all kinds of nefarious activities because there's several arrests. So before any murders happen that we know of, April 21st, 1968, my dad's birthday, April 21st. So Brunner, Manson and several of the members of the family were arrested. They're so fucking weird, right? They were found sprawled, nude, around a campfire because the bus that they'd been driving had gone into a ditch. Now, I don't want to see any of these people nude. The bus had been reported stolen on the 12th of April. So the police come along and they're like, oh, there's the bus and there's some naked people. We'll go and sort this out. Now, Charles Manson was remanded in custody under suspicion of grand theft auto and possession of 2 driver's licences. Some other members of the family, men Scott, Atkinson, Lake and Van Hall, they were charged with having fake licences. There was Pittman, Arneson and someone called Bailey. They were jailed for disorderly conduct and not having proper ID. And 5 others of the family were released without charge. Now, Mary Brunner was charged with endangering the life of her 1-week-old son, Valentine, who wasn't dressed properly and was shivering out in the cold. These people are mad. The child was taken into the care of the Ventura County General Hospital. Now, charges were later reduced to contributing to delinquency of a minor.
hell.
It's a baby. And she was given 2 years probation and 15 days suspended sentence. She said she got the child back because she said, oh, do you know what? If you give me the kid back, I'm going to back to my parents in Wisconsin. And she didn't. But the baby was given back to her. And a few months later, she and some other members of the family were arrested for supplying narcotics to minors, which
Jesus
is a
Christ.
disgusting crime, if you ask me.
God.
So at this point, they've become, as we mentioned in the previous episode, they've become a doomsday cult, basically. He's obsessed with this perceived race war. He's basically a white supremacist, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He says that he's the leader, he serves as the master, and the Beatles' White Album comes into play in 1968, and he says that that's got things to do with it. These people are mad.
Yeah, because it's really interesting to hear what the lyrics are and what he sees. So Blackbird, which is the most benign, soft Beatles song. So it goes, you were only waiting for this moment to arise. So he's convinced that the word rise is very significant, and that song is a direct order for the Manson family to rise up and start this a revolt against the white establishment that will lead to a race war, which will lead to them surviving by murdering everyone else.
The thing is, if you're a narcissist, you can make anything pertain to you. I mean,
Yes.
we mentioned in previous episodes, you could take the lyrics to Agadoo and go, well, actually, the push pineapple, shake the tree, that actually refers to the instability of society, and the pineapple is humanity. You see what I mean? You can make anything about you. I'm a stand-up comedian. I know how to make things about me. Like it's lunacy. This.
It's mad. We'll come back to those because there's other lyrics that are directly referenced in the murders.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Bit of intrigue. Have we got stuff about Tex? I can talk about Tex.
Tell me about Tex. Who's Tex? Is this a person?
Yeah, he's part of the gang.
Oh, of course, Tex, yeah. Tell me about Tex.
So Charles Denton Watson was born in 1945, December the 2nd, in Dallas, Texas. He's the youngest of three, and he grew up in a very small town in Texas. He is just a country boy, basically. Had a very happy childhood. So he's very unusual. He grew up in the church. He was very involved in the church. He was an honour roll student. He was sort of like a record holder for some sports in his local town. He loved basketball. He was good at athletics, good at football. And he became an editor for his school newspaper. He's sort of the exact opposite of a lot of the people that we've read about. Now, things change when he goes to uni. But then this also, do you know people like this who are like straight A students, really good at everything, and they go to uni and they start drinking and they don't have their parents going, do this, and they just go fucking mad?
Yes.
Well, this is what happened to him.
Oh.
So he goes, September 1964, he goes to uni and he's like, hello, women and booze. He gets a job working at Braniff Airlines as a baggage boy, which I think is...
Baggage handler.
Yeah, baggage handler.
Baggage boy sounds like a slur.
Yeah. Baggage boy is how you can refer to most of my ex-boyfriends.
He's a baggage boy. Yeah.
But do you know
he's
what?
Got baggage boy written all over him.
I know they get a lot of grief, and I do see how they throw suitcases, including mine, around, but I also think they're treated like shit. Which is why they were striking not so long ago. Well, a couple of years ago now. Do you remember they went on strike?
Yeah.
Because I think they get treated like dog shit, whereas they did not at the time. So one of the things they would get if you work for Braniff Airlines is you get free flights.
Woo.
So he would go and take a girl he was dating to Hawaii for the weekend.
Nice.
And so he starts smoking pot around this time. Of course he did. He's a fucking teenager in the 60s. And he starts experimenting with drugs. And then he was like, do you know what? One of my frat brothers is from California. I've heard so much about California at the moment. I'm going to go there and just see what it's like. And as soon as he goes to California, it was like, oh my God, this is everything I dreamed of. So he goes back home and he literally says to his parents, I'm moving to California and becoming a hippie and you can't stop me. And he does exactly that. He signs up for Cal State, which I think is a university, and he starts working as one of the best fucking jobs in the world, a wig salesman.
Amazing.
In Beverly Hills. Imagine the fucking size of those wigs.
Imagine that.
So he lived for a bit in Silver Lake, and then he moves to Laurel Canyon. Now, about this time, he has a car accident. So he would have been conscripted to be in the Vietnam Army, but he has a bad knee, so he can't. So he's doing these classes at Cal State for a while. Then he drops out of there. Then he moves to Malibu. Then this is mad. Him and his roommates are like, we should open a wig shop. And it was called Love Locks.
Ooh.
And it lasted 3 months. So to sort of like make ends meet, because obviously he's got this failed business, he's injured, he starts selling weed. That's his full-time job. Tex, he sort of comes to the Manson gang through Dennis Wilson. By the way, I should clarify that Dennis Wilson, when all these crimes come out as being the Manson family crimes, he feels incredible. Oh, fuck me.
Having a Christmas yawn?
Oh, fucking Christmas
Go
Eve.
on, it's Christmas, have a yawn.
When it's revealed that Charles Manson is behind the murders, he's racked with guilt. The other Beach Boys say he's never really the same afterwards. And he feels incredibly guilty, engages in a lot of self-destructive behaviour, which they think leads to him dying. He drowns at only 39. So they think that Dennis Wilson just felt awful about facilitating these group of people for any length of time.
Wow.
Now, Tex is a big part of the gang, and he comes to the gang through Dennis Wilson. So he was a very small town Texan, and he was a big guy as well. And he'd been in college in California, but he quit and was like,
you have, if you're going to refer to yourself as Tex, you have to be big.
Yes, well, he didn't. It was a nickname that was given to him. So he was in college, and then he quits, and then he goes to California because that's where everything was happening in the hippie movement. So it's through Dennis Wilson that he meets Charles Manson. And how he meets Dennis is Charles Watson, aka Tex, is driving along, and Wilson is hitchhiking. Dennis Wilson is hitchhiking with the Beach Boys because all the other cars had been wrecked by members of the family, because they'd stolen his car before and written it off. It was uninsured at the time.
Rude.
Yeah. Do you know what? You know that was bills they ran up. It was $100,000. I was reading about it last night. £21,000 of it were medical bills, and that was just to treat their gonorrhea.
Oh God, I hate these people. Seriously.
Yeah.
Oh,
21 grand's worth of gonorrhea, I think, is your 20s well spent.
Fuck me. No, thank you. I hate them.
Yeah, you're not having food prepared there.
No, absolutely not.
So Dennis Wilson is hitchhiking, and then Charles Watson picks him up. He goes, would you come back to my house and say thank you for it? And while he's there, he introduces him to Charles Manson, and Charles Watson becomes obsessed, besotted with him, and they give him the nickname of Tex. In fact, it's George Spann of the ranch that gives him that, because he had a really Texan drawl when he spoke. So Tex becomes this disciple very quickly of Charles Manson. Now, this is so interesting what he says about meeting Charles Manson. He says, for years, I struggled to accumulate all I could. The right car, the right clothes, the right things that would somehow complete what I thought was missing inside me. And now I gave everything I had to Charlie, and suddenly I felt very free. Because that's one of the things Charles Manson would do, is he'd insist that they gave him all the worldly possessions that they had. But they found it, like, a lot of these people had found working in... This is my theory, man, that, like, it's about the time that we become consumers, and you've got to have this car and you've got to wear these clothes, and you're a consumer and you buy and you buy and you buy. And some people found that really fucking hard and stressful, like people find it now. And someone coming along and going, I'll take care of all that for you, give me everything that you have, you're just going to be part of this family and I will decide for you. It's being institutionalised. And I think that was really appealing to some people.
It is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, he moved out of the ranch briefly. He lives with them until about autumn of 1968, because he's like, these drugs are great, these girls are fit as well. And then he was like, you know what, I might try and settle down. So it's about November, and he moves in with a girl called Luella, and they live in Hollywood in an apartment. They're just dealing weed. And he was like, you know what? I think this is all right. I think this is a mix of the two worlds. He starts getting sort of nice clothes. He goes and has his hair done again. Luella gets pregnant and he sends her to Mexico to get an abortion. So he has this lifestyle where he's sort of an executive drug dealer, but he misses the family. And he comes back in March of 1969 and everything has changed in that time. So when he left them, they were sort of like feckless hippies just fucking each other. And when he comes back, all they're talking about is the revolution that they refer to as Helter Skelter. And so he's like, what is going on here? And everyone's talking about it. Everyone's getting excited about it. That's all the conversations are. How are they going to do it? When's it going to happen? Where are they going to go? He starts taking belladonna, which we've mentioned before on this podcast, right?
Yeah.
He takes belladonna and he gets arrested about this time in Van Nuys for being publicly intoxicated. Apparently, he was sliding around on his hands and knees through a crowd of children going, beep, 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 beep.
Oh my God, this is so embarrassing.
Yeah, but I think he's got some... Well, obviously he's got problems with addiction here, but I also think there's some potentially longer-lasting effects from these drugs that make him very susceptible to suggestion, because Charles starts grooming him for murder. So it's sort of the summer of 1969, and that him and Tex just go out in the car and try and find people to murder. So they sit there, and they're in a parking lot of a casino, just waiting for people to come out. So Tex is sat there with a knife in his hand. And then he goes up behind two old women who are in their car, and the women shit themselves and luckily manage to get away before he can open the door. So they run back to the car, get in it, and they chase them for about 15 minutes, and then the women get away.
Bloody hell.
So Tex's behaviour is spiralling. He even sets up a fake drug deal against his ex-girlfriend Luella, because she started going out with this guy called Bernard Crowe, and Tex knew that they had loads of money, probably from selling weed. It was about $2,500 in their money, which is about 12.5 today. So he goes around, he sets up this fake drug deal, and they work out that it's Tex. So Bernard Crowe blames Luella. He's like, it's your fucking ex-boyfriend, so you're the one who's brought this to our house and lost us this money. So he starts threatening her, and then starts threatening, he's like, I'm gonna go to the Manson family, I'm gonna get my debt back. Manson hears of this and shoots him in the stomach.
Ooh.
He thinks he's killed him, but he didn't. He managed to survive, but he didn't report it to the police. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I understand that the hippie movement is like counterculture, and I'm all for counterculture, but it also, I think, attracted a lot of vulnerable people, a lot of people who... Because we'd sort of switched to consumerism then, and like really lent into capitalism, basically. That's when it started, and I think a lot of people found that really hard and pushed against it, or people with other things going on weren't able to survive in environments like that. So you're picking up all these different people who the world had pushed aside, people who were just rich kids who wanted to fuck around and not work, people who weren't able to work, people who, were also just being in their 20s. It's a fascinating like maelstrom, but as a result, I think there's a lot of really vulnerable people in this group.
Oh yeah, and also remember getting involved with drugs, which then makes you vulnerable. I don't think it's as cool and free and easy as people like to think.
No, I think there's some people running the ship, not doing very much, and then other people running around for the good of the group. They also did have they had another ranch that they used to inhabit, which was near sort of Death Valley. And there was basically an old woman who, her granddaughter was in the family. So they went and sort of exploited that and stayed with her grandma and lived on that ranch. And then another group of them, there was this local woman who was quite old, and then Manson turns up at her, sees that she's got this ranch that she's not doing very much with because she's quite old, rocks up and says, hey, me and this guy, we're musicians, and we just want somewhere.
That would be enough for me to slam the door shut.
Well, he was like, we need somewhere to work, and this is a beautiful environment, blah blah blah, and in return we can do some stuff around the place for you, because it's an old woman and it'd fallen slightly into disrepair because she couldn't do a lot. And she was like, oh yeah, great. And one of the things he gives her, which is very strange to give to a woman who probably would have been born in, what we're talking about, the 60s, at least the turn of the century, gives her a gold disc from the Beach Boys that Dennis Wilson... it says that he gave it, but I think he stole it. So he gives him one of the Beach Boys' gold albums, which I think a woman who was born in Victorian times would be like, what the fuck am I meant to do with this?
What the fuck is going on?
Yeah, and then this is the White Album era. Should I give a bit of information? We haven't got anything on Kasabian yet.
Oh, no, not yet.
Are Kasabian named after her?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, they're named after her. That's Kasabian are named after her. Here's something. So, you know the lead singer Tom Meehan from Kasabian was charged with domestic violence against his, now wife.
Oh, yeah.
The band sacked him. Now, here's something that I'm struggling with. I mean, reading how violent he was to her, and everyone's gone, well, she's married him now. It's like, no, that man will do that again.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's by the by. But love Noel Gallagher, as you know. He's got Tom Meehan supporting him at one of his gigs. Now, how does Noel Gallagher, a man who as a child developed a stutter because he saw his mother being domestically abused by his father, and also he was beaten by his father, and he developed this stutter because he was so frightened, and his mother had to flee, taking the 3 boys with her to get them to safety, and so she didn't have to live in fear anymore and be attacked by him. How does he think that that's okay? How does he think that that's a good move?
Because maybe, not that I'm defending him, but if this guy's an abuser, they're really good at manipulating people around them.
No, this is Noel Gallagher we're talking about. Noel Gallagher is not easy to be manipulated. And I mean this affectionately, the man's a gobshite. He knows the facts of what happened. He's been through this himself. His mother has given up a lot in her life and made sure that they were safe and brought up well. And I just find it incredibly bizarre. And I don't think it's anything... Look, it's not about manipulation or whatever. This man has done this. And Noel Gallagher has actually... Oasis have always had, and Noel Gallagher, people working with them, they've always had a very female-led team with them. So photographer was a woman. People were, they've had managers that have been women. They've always had a very strong female presence. And Noel Gallagher has a good... How do I say this? I think he works well with women. And I just cannot reconcile in my head how he thinks that's okay. It's a bizarre move from him.
It is. I don't know his history as well as you do, but yeah, it does seem out of character from everything you said.
Completely. So bizarre. And let's be honest, Kasabian are probably one of my least favourite bands. So, solo Tom Meehan, he's going to be dog shit.
Is he solo because they kicked him out the band for the violence?
Yeah.
Fuck. And then, Liam Gallagher's having him as a solo artist.
Noel Gallagher. Yeah. He's got him supporting him as a solo artist. And this is what I mean. It's like, if your band have sacked you because of the violence that you enacted towards a woman, I'm out. But yeah, there's all this thing, like, because obviously she's married him since. And if you read the violence that he meted out, it's horrific. He was basically, he was dragging the poor woman around his garden by her hair.
Fuck.
And the neighbours phoned the police.
Also, if he's doing that, that's not the first time he's done anything.
Absolutely not.
That's
absolutely
an escalation,
not.
Isn't it? Oh, God.
But I tell you now, it's not over. That that will. Tim's actually just walked in as I said that, and he's brought me a cup of tea. Oh, that's really lightened the mood. Thank you. Thanks for that.
Should we go back to the Manson family for some light relief?
Yeah, I think we should do. Oh, hey, I tell you what, Tim's got some Christmas pyjamas on.
Well.
He's got dogs with festive hats on.
How cute.
It's all happening today. What's that, Tim?
You Killa.
Yeah, I'm recording.
Right, I'm going to tell you about Linda Kasabian.
Tell us about Linda.
That's a married name. She married a guy called Robert Kasabian, who was a hippie. That was her second marriage. She was 16 when she first got married. She dropped out of high school, divorced soon afterwards. I think she comes from quite a troubled background. Mm-hmm. So she was born in 1949 in Maine. Now, her and Robert, when they get married, they just sort of enjoy that freestyle hippie, like freewheeling movement, basically. Mm-hmm. They just travel around America, they stay at commune for a bit, then they roll on to the next one. In 1968, so this is right at the time of the Manson family sort of coming together, they have their first child, is Tanya. But they're not really in a position to be parents. And when a baby's introduced into the situation, they start to have a clash. So basically, Linda and her baby Tanya moved back to New Hampshire. Now, Robert Kasabian wants to reconcile. It's like, no, we can be a family. We can make this work. Don't go back to the old lifestyle. So they meet in California. He's like, come out to California. And he was living with in Topanga Canyon with a guy called Charles Melton. And it was Melton who gets to know the Mansons, and that is the gate. He's like the gateway drug into it. So Charles Melton, who's friends with Bob, introduces Linda to Catherine Scher, who's known as Gypsy. Now, her and Bob get back together in California, but it goes tits up almost straight away. And she says, you know what, I'm going to go with Gypsy. I'm going to go back to this ranch that she's living on with all these other people. And it's the Span Ranch. Now, she has one day there at this ranch, looks around and goes, yeah, this is a bit of me, this. So she goes back to Topanga Canyon, where Bob is living. She gets all her stuff together. She steals $5,000 from Charles Melton. Yep. And then she comes back and she's like, sign me up.
That's a lot of money.
It's so much money.
That's a lot now. That's a lot then.
Well, this is it. These hippies are never fucking poor, are they? They act like it, but they never are. So she bins off that ranch, she bins off Bob, she bins off Charles Menton, and she, with Gypsy, is fully then part of the family. Now, what they do is they sort of designate her as a designated driver. So she was meant to, when they come up with this plan that they're going to commit a murder, Sharon Tate's house, we'll get to her in a second, they were like, you're the one who's going to drive everyone, because she's the only one who had a valid driver's licence. So they're all happily driving around, but they're like, we should respect the law, because if we get pulled over, that'll completely fuck us. So she is the one sat in the car whilst it all happens. She's also witnesses an awful lot of what happens on that night on August 8th. But that is her sort of background. So the people who go that night, they take some acid, and it's Charles Tex Watson. So Tex is there. And it's Charles Manson who tells them to go. And they push back at first, and he goes fucking ballistic when they push back on it, by the way.
Little nerd.
I think he just didn't like being disobeyed.
Well,
which is...
I mean, who does? But there's disobeying and there's saying no to going out to carry out a murder. Go and do it yourself, you little dweeb.
So Charles is there. Susan Atkins is there. This is what's interesting is it's mainly women in there. And Patricia Krenwinkel. Those are the four that are sent. And bearing in mind, one is sat in the car the whole time. It's quite incredible that these teenage girls, basically, or very young women, deliver such devastating violence. Yeah,
it's horrible.
Yeah,
this is a brutal murder.
Yeah, and they're only... like Susan, when it happened, Susan Atkins, she's from California. She's born in 1948, which means she's like 20 when this happens. Now, she has a really sad life. Her mother had cancer, and she died when Susan was a teenager. Her dad was an alcoholic, so she just had a horrible home life, and then she just fucks off. Which, like I say, lots of vulnerable people. Fucks off, drops out of school, moves to San Francisco. You'd go to San Francisco or California, that's where the hippies were, because it was warm, you could like live outside all year round. She starts working as a telemarketer, basically pushing, magazine subscriptions. And she sort of like sets herself up and is living in a little one-bedroom flat, but is so skint. She's really lonely. She's really sad. And she was like, this is soul-destroying, cold calling people. So she goes to work in a coffee shop because she's like, at least I'll be around people and I'll get to speak to people, because she was having such little social interaction. And while she's there, she starts chatting to these guys who are a bit charismatic. Now, they're escaped convicts. And, and she was like, you know what? They seem fun. They seem like exactly the kind of spice that I need in my life. So she's like, can I come with you? And they were like, well, we're gonna go and do some more burglaries. And she's like, yeah, great. So they basically drive up the West Coast and do loads of fucking armed robberies together. They get caught in Oregon. The men get sent to prison, and she got probation after she only did about 3 months. And then this is where things really start to, I think things get tougher and tougher for her. So she stops having more conventional jobs, like being a waiter, and she starts working as a topless dancer in San Francisco. Now, I'm not saying it's unconventional to be a topless dancer, but I am saying it's fairly unconventional to dance in a show called The Witch's Sabbath, which is organised by the Church of Satan founder, Anton LaVey.
Oh,
so she was she was in a satanic topless dancing troupe.
What's the core belief of Satanism?
Is it not just that the devil runs stuff?
Seek revenge.
Is it?
Yeah. Revenge is a huge thing in Satanism.
Interesting. Well, I listened to a podcast, I think maybe it was The Coming Storm, that was talking about, like, satanic panic. And there was a guy who was a member of the Satanic Church, and he was like, what he takes from it is the fact that, like, you are responsible for your own actions.
Yes, yeah. It's very... I used to have the Satanic Bible. It's very... it's not necessarily devil worship. It's all about you, basically, is what I took from it. Mm. It's basically worshipping yourself, more or less. And it's based around, you know, like, you are responsible for your actions. It's basically you're worshipping yourself in a way. Mm. That is the thing. It's seek revenge. Is if anyone crosses you, you seek revenge.
Fuck, it sounds like me. Worshipping myself and driven only to seek revenge genuinely sounds right up my street. Fucking hell.
So sorry, I interrupted there.
No, it's fine. Susan Atkins, once she gets out of prison and is doing the topless dancing, she quits her job and she's like, that's not for me either. And about that time, she meets Charles Manson. And I think this is a young woman who has been looking for someone to sort of inspire and lead her for a while, based on her childhood. And she gets that in abundance with Charles Manson. He has an incredibly profound effect on her. Later on, people go on to say that she was probably... Well, Tex is like, she was his biggest fan, and she would always be like, yeah, that's a great idea, and he would look to her for positive affirmation. And she was really... There was a thing that they used to do. Have you heard about the creepy crawler missions?
No.
This is, weirdly, one of the more upsetting things. Obviously, the murders are fucking horrific. But they would dress all in black, and at night, they would go out and they would sneak into people's houses. This is still at the time when people didn't lock their houses.
I hate this.
They would steal bits, but they would also... It would mainly be a psychological thing. They'd rearrange things in the house. So you'd wake up and nothing might have been taken, but they might have moved everything around. And so they would call them creepy crawler missions.
It's like a dark version of changing rooms, isn't it? So weird.
I'd argue that's changing rooms.
Do you know, did I tell you what I wanted to do years ago? So when I first got, like, you know, Virgin Media TV or whatever it was, like, I'd never had, like, that digital TV or whatever. And as I was exploring it and, you know, finding out about what you could watch on demand on it, there was, like, classic, notable news bulletins on it. Mm-hmm. So, like, there was the death of Princess Diana. And I really, really wanted, like, someone to... So, at the time I had a housemate who was really annoying. You know who I mean. Oh, yeah. Not Colin. Yeah. He was a dream. And she was so lazy, right? This woman lived her life like there was a permanent gas leak wherever she was. And what I really wanted... She'd often fall asleep on the sofa. I really wanted to, like, when she was asleep one day, rearrange the living room slightly and just put that on. So when she woke up, she'd be like, Oh my God. Is it 1997? I mean, it would have been a lot of work.
Seek revenge.
Seek revenge. There you go. What a lazy bastard she was.
So Charles Manson gives Sadie Atkins another name, by the way. She has a lot of names. He gives her a fake ID with Sadie Glutz on it. So she's known as Sadie Mae Glutz. Also Sexy Sadie, which is obviously a Beatles reference.
Yeah.
Donna
I like
K.
the name Sadie.
Sadie's nice, isn't it? Donna K. Powell is another one of her pseudonyms, as is Sharon King. Now, she would often clash with Charles Manson. She adored him, but they would clash because she would really want his attention. Mm-hmm. And she would want attention on her. And, of course, no one wanted attention more than Charles Manson. So at one point, she was booted out of the family.
Ooh.
And she was the one that they blamed for bringing gonorrhea into the household as well.
Look, you're all responsible for that.
And she was in the group that was arrested for giving LSD to local children. Now, this was in Mendocino in California. So at the trial, they were nicknamed the Witches of Mendocino. Because they all had long hair and they did look sort of like, you know, sort of flowing garbs. I guess there's a lazy sort of witch stereotype there.
It doesn't matter. You just have to be a woman. They will call you a witch.
Yeah, that's true. That's enough.
Hag or witch.
Hag or witch. Hag or witch.
That's the new game show on ITV.
The new game show that determines whether you're too old to be on telly.
Yeah, and it's hosted by a man. in his 50s, because that's absolutely fine.
Oh God, yeah. Can you think of any women in there? Oh, maybe Sandy Toksvig, that's it.
Yeah, but she's okay because she's clever.
Yes.
That's allowed.
Educated, yeah.
Yeah.
So, October 1968, she has a baby boy that they called, Zizozisi Zadfrak.
Ugh, get a life. These people, man.
Yeah. She's away from the family for a bit there. Well, she goes to a nearby religious retreat called Fountain of the World, where she sort of recovers from the birth. But then she does bounce back because in 1969 she is at all the murders and is very, very involved with them. Yes, so that is Sadie. I'm just going through all the ones that the Tarrant... We've done Charles, we've done Susan, we've done Linda Skabian. So the last one is Patricia Krenwinkel. Sorry that I'm saying these incorrectly.
Seriously, are you bothered to getting these people's names wrong? I would deliberately get these people's names wrong. I hate them.
Well, I'm more thinking the people who have the same surname as her. I'm trying to be respectful.
Oh, look, no one cares.
It's mad that you can see all these people, alive in like the 2000s. So Patricia Krenwinkel.
Well, Linda Kasabian's still alive.
Yeah. And out, I believe. Yes. Patricia Krenwinkel, she was born in 1947 in LA. Her parents, all of these kids mainly come from backgrounds of divorced parents. Now, obviously, that's not a big thing, but I think back then it probably was. And there was a lot of, I think there was stigma when I was growing up if people's parents separated. But definitely if this happened in sort of the 50s. So it might have put an extra strain. Obviously, I'm not saying that that's why people murder because their parents are divorced, but it's certainly a thing that they have in common. So she stayed with her father, who worked, he was just selling insurance. So she stayed in California with him, and then her mum moves all the way to Alabama. And she decides after high school, do you know what, I'm going to go and live with my mum. I'm going to go to a Catholic college. So she moves to Alabama, which is obviously a very different environment to California, and she sort of gets more engaged in religion. She had been quite religious. She used to teach at a Sunday school, and she was like, you know what, I might become a nun. But then she lasts one term, and then it's like, I'm dropping the fuck out of this. And in fact, I'm going to go back to California because it's absolutely wank being in Alabama trying to be a nun.
Trying to be a nun.
So she moves in with a half-sister, and
she was having none of it.
Really good, Rachel. Really
Kill
good.
me.
She moves in with a half-sister, sorry, and she just is working basically as like a data entry. Now, she meets in September of 1967 Lynette Fromm and Mary Brunner and Charles Manson on a beach. Now, she has sex with Charles Manson and goes, you know what? I like this. And then goes, yeah, I'm going to go with you. So she just goes. like, gets in a car and goes with them. She leaves her car behind. She doesn't even pick up her paycheck, and she just fucks off to San Francisco. How good is someone in bed that they can fuck you into moving counties and
how
leaving
sheltered
money?
has your life been that you think that's good?
Oh, interesting.
Like, this guy is a dweeb. I bet he stank as well.
Well, she was obsessed with him. She was incredibly dedicated to him. Her role in the family was sort of a caregiver. So she was described as being very sort of quite timid but fucking intense. And she would take care of the children who were born within the family. And she is one of the ones that is picked up in 1968 by Dennis Wilson. It's her and Ella Bailey who are picked up and go back for milk and cookies.
Oh, God.
Because he was like, I'll just stay here while I'm going to the recording studio. And that's obviously when he comes back and everyone else is there at the house. So all this is happening. So you've got fake driving licenses. You've got a getaway driver.
Chaos.
It's chaos. And then this leads to August the 8th, 1969, where they go to 10050 Cielo Drive. And that is where we will start the next episode.
Oh, listen, we've not even got to the murder yet.
It's fucking mad. And we haven't met some of the others. We haven't met Steve Grogan or Leslie Van Houten.
I don't want to meet any more of them.
Fine.
I'm out.
Van Houten is the name of Millhouse, right?
Yes, it is.
I wonder if that's a reference. Well, there we go. That's the fucking
I mean, another hour gone.
Another fucking hour. I knew it would be. So we will definitely start Sharon Tate and the murder that happens that night. Mm-hmm. Next episode. Fucking hell.
I knew this was going to be a big one, but I didn't think it was going to take this long.
No, and I don't think we'll be particularly diligent either.
No, I know.
This is one of the ones where someone said, I put up the ep last night, because we recorded it in the morning and we had it out by the night, which is quite impressive. And this guy was like, how many episodes are there going to be? And I was like, I genuinely don't know. Genuinely don't. There could be fucking 8 more, there could be 1 more. I said at least 3, but looks like there's going to be fucking 4 now.
Who knows? I'm going to have to go and eat something.
Yes, you go and eat, mate. Merry Christmas, everybody!
Father Christmas will be is brushing the reindeers. Mrs. Christmas is making mince pies for them. I'm not very good at this.
Mrs. Christmas is getting filled in by Sean Corn.
Oh God, please don't. That has turned my stomach.
Imagine if there was a Welsh one and an English one. Do you know what my friend was saying? This is so lovely. Her kids speak Welsh, their first language. So they're sort of getting to the age where they're asking questions about Santa. And of course, we all know that Santa's real, but they've got kids in their class who are saying they're not real. And it's hard when you see to convince children that Santa's real when you see so many fake ones in shopping centres. And so they write to Santa in Welsh, so they're convinced. They'll go up to Santa, and if he doesn't speak Welsh, they know he's not the real Santa.
Oh, that's good.
That's great, isn't it? So they're like, an imposter. Because they've spoken to him in Welsh.
Although we all know that they are just representatives of Father Christmas, aren't they?
Well, it is, isn't it? It's a franchise. It's like the Blue Man Group.
Yeah, exactly. They're just representatives. I don't know why we're committing to this, because there's no kids listening to this.
There fucking is. People are like, I have it on in the car when my sort of 6-year-old is there, or my 3-year-old.
Well, have a word with your fucking parenting approach then. This is not for children. I tell you how much this isn't for children. Father Christmas isn't real.
Don't.
Father Christmas isn't real. There you go. Your children shouldn't be listening to this.
You know that's one of the only rules on TV that you can't... They're like, you can't say cunt, you can't say motherfucker. Depending on what you are, you can't say fuck. But the ones are always, you can't say cunt, you can't say motherfucker. And you can't say the Santa isn't real.
Really?
Yeah. Those are like the golden rules.
I think that's fair enough.
I think it's fair enough.
Yeah.
Says you, fucking foghorning it around the place.
Yeah, but listen, children should not be listening to this. Not because of the content, really. I mean, I've got no issue with kids watching murder stuff. But the swearing. and like the sexual content. That's why I don't think children should be listening to this.
Prude.
But also, when I was a kid and I heard someone swear, like my family swear, but it's only like bloody hell or whatever. If I heard somebody say the F word, I'd be mortified as a kid. I mean, look at me now. I've got over it. But, I used to find it quite shocking.
Oh, my dad. I've never heard him say the C word, but just about every other word. in quick succession.
My mother, now I'm older and my mum swears, so it's quite shocking. I mean, I know I swear, but I never swear in front of my parents.
Yeah, I try not to.
But my mum, she's like, and that cunt. And I'm like, oh, God, please stop.
A mum saying cunt. Why is that so funny?
But also, like, she sent me a message the other day. I can't remember who it was about. And it said, well, they're just an insufferable cunt. I'm like, please stop, Mum. You're my mum.
Oh, fucking hell, that's funny. It's great.
I used to call you Mummy. You're my mum. Please don't. Anyway, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. I hope you have peace and quiet and you're being left alone. And I hope if you're on your own that we've been able to keep you company for a bit.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Dolly knowing, pal.
Oh, Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Bye.